Why should you study philosophy? Well, this conversation, I guess it's not really a conversation because I'm just talking. This monologue is part of my Philosophy Unscripted series. The bulk of the videos on this channel is me reading my academic papers, but this video and a few like it are going to be unscripted. No notes, no papers, no, just my ideas, talking with you, sharing with you about studying philosophy. So maybe I'll just share a little bit about how I started studying philosophy, and it wasn't entirely on purpose. I took a class my freshman year at the University of Southern California in the 1900s, quite some time ago. And on the first day of the class, the professor leading the course, it was actually part of the honors program there at USC at the time, the philosophy professor leading the course started his class by saying, there is a map in your mind. And that map uses signposts and guides you to live your life well, or live your life anyway. Whether it's well or not may depend on how accurate your map is. So that was a year-long course in the history of Western philosophy taught by a Christian philosopher named Dallas Willard. And Dallas had a very tremendous influence on me as an undergraduate. And I had that course with him, and then took another course with him my sophomore year. I think it was the history of ethics. And then my junior year at the university, I was originally majoring in international relations and got really interested in the Middle East, and ended up living abroad, studying abroad, and then planning on working abroad after I graduated. But during my senior year, I realized that I could add philosophy as a second major and finish in 4 years as an undergrad. And so I took a few other philosophy classes with some pretty good professors at USC at the time. And it was during that time that philosophy kind of really interested me. And part of it, I think, was due to my faith as a Christian student, as a Christian generally, and someone who's interested in ideas. Philosophy really resonated with my own worldview, with the things that interested me, primarily God and our relationship with Him, and the nature of reality, and the nature of knowledge and truth, and the nature of goodness and beauty, and all the things that philosophers study. So why someone like you should study philosophy may vary depending on your own situation. In my situation, it was a deep interest in ideas. And if you're not interested in ideas, probably studying philosophy is not for you. If you are interested in ideas, then philosophy can be a vehicle by means of which you can study ideas. It's not the only way you can study ideas, but philosophy generally answers the kind of questions that are the biggest kinds of questions that human beings can ask. And those questions, as I've already mentioned, are what is real? What is the nature of reality? What is the nature of being? What is it to exist? What kinds of things exist? And that's what philosophers, of course, call metaphysics or ontology. And then the next kind of question is, well, how do I know the things that are real? How do I come to grasp those things that are real and exist? And how do I know that those things are true? And then what is truth? And what are the limits and extent and scope of knowledge? What kind of evidence do I have for the beliefs that I have? How do I tell if those are true? So, and that's, of course, epistemology. And then the deeper questions that many times people get hooked in philosophy are questions about their own life, about meaning and purpose and reasons for being. And that usually is in the area of ethics. What is the good life? What is it for me to be a good person? Who is a good person? How do I become one? What kind of life is worth living? Those are all ethical questions, and those are deep questions that everyone has answers to some extent, whether they think about them or reflect on them or not. And then, of course, there's aesthetics, which is a study of beauty. That's part of value theory in ethics. So why should you study philosophy? Well, I mean, it's up to you, really, what your reasons are for studying philosophy. I think it should be motivated. Your study of philosophy should be motivated by seeking the truth. about the things that I've mentioned, about what's real, about truth itself and knowledge, about goodness and beauty, and how those connect to your living life well. And I think that philosophy ultimately is friendship with wisdom. It's a kind of relationship with a person who is wisdom. In my view, that's ultimately connected to God. We have images of this in the Christian scriptures. In the book of Proverbs, for example, Lady Wisdom calls out and invites the young especially, and also the old, to engage with her and in order to live life well. And I think that's a beautiful image of the motivation for studying philosophy, is that it helps you live your life well. I mean, maybe you could go into it for the money. Maybe you're interested in making a lot of money and you think philosophy can do that for you. It might. I mean, I just read an article in the New York Times this last week. It was called something like Revenge of the Philosophers, why philosophers are making so much money these days, at least a few of them. Philosophy, or the Revenge of the Philosophy Majors. And it was about how these big tech companies these big tech companies are hiring philosophers apparently to do AI stuff, which I guess is great. It just depends on the philosopher, I suppose. I mean, if you think to the history of Western philosophy from, I don't know, the pre-Socratics, Protagoras, maybe Heraclitus, up to today, not all philosophers get everything right. You know. I mean, do you want a sheer materialist? Do you want Thales running your AI program? I don't know. Everything's water. I guess he was a surfer. So, I mean, some philosophers had some crazy ideas. You know, I mean, do you want them in charge of your AI ethics? Well, you might be motivated to study philosophy because of the money, but probably not. I think that if something is worth doing and spending your time on, it's worth it because you love it. We tend to spend time and effort on the things that we love. And philosophy, being love of wisdom, I think is worth spending the time on for its own sake. Now, this presents challenges, of course, because philosophers sometimes get lost in their philosophy. Thinking about big ideas sometimes is a lot easier than cutting the grass or changing the oil in the car or paying the bills or folding laundry or whatever it is you have to, running errands, right? So this reminds me of something like Jordan Peterson, I think, talks about how sometimes people will get so enamored with the big ideas of saving the world and forget that maybe they should just clean their room or make their bed or empty the dishwasher or vacuum the house or scrub the toilet or take care of the mundane things first. So for people that get so enamored with philosophy that they want to spend all of their time doing it, that can be a big challenge, I think. You of course can study philosophy because you want the wrong things, right? I mean, philosophy, like anything else, can be the object of a disordered love. If you are spending time with philosophy for, let's say, using Plato's description of the disordered states in the Republic, right? You've got the aristocratic state. In fact, let's just riff on this for a moment. So think back to Plato. If you haven't read Plato's Republic, go stop this video and go read it. It's you just need to read it if you're going to be a philosopher. I don't think you can be a philosopher without some mastery of the Republic. I don't think that's my little pet peeve opinion. I think that's idiosyncratic to me. So go read the Republic. And in the Republic, Plato's got this these 5 orders of the regime or soul. The highest, of course, is the aristocratic soul or the aristocratic state. Those are the rule of virtue, the rule of the lover of wisdom. And then there's the oligarchic, the timocratic state is next, and that's the rule of the virtue of honor, primarily military honors, strength and the virtue of the warrior. And then there is the oligarchic, which is of course the rule of money, and then the democratic, and then the tyrannic. So I think there's five motivations. I'll follow Plato on this. 5 motivations to study philosophy. The best motivation is for the love of wisdom, and that is the aristocratic philosopher. The aristocratic philosopher will be into philosophy because they love the good, because they love the beautiful, because they love the true, and they love the ultimate reality, which is God. And as a Christian, that God has been revealed to us in Jesus Christ. And he is the fount of all that is real. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end of all things. So I think the primary love for doing philosophy is the love of ultimately what is real. And as a Christian, that's going to be found in Jesus. So that's the main reason to study philosophy, is because you love God and you love Jesus. Now, of course, you can love Jesus and love God and not study philosophy at all. You can do other things for God. But I think as a philosopher, qua philosopher, the main motivation should be the love of wisdom. And that's, of course, what philosophy is. The next bad reason, so that's the best reason, the only good reason to study philosophy. The next bad reason is the timocratic philosopher. When I have my students, when we read the Republic, of course, this is my favorite regime, is the timocratic, the timocracy, because it's the rule of Tim. And there are those who call me Tim. If you know that reference. So, the timocratic regime, the timocratic soul, is a person who's motivated by honors in doing philosophy. Now, as a professional philosopher, someone who gets paid to do philosophy for the last 30-some years, 38 years, 28 years, not that old, 28 years, being paid to study and teach philosophy. I feel like I see this a lot in the discipline of philosophy amongst professionally paid philosophers, but even amongst philosophers who do this for clicks. My motivation for studying philosophy might be I want people to think highly of me, to be honored as a victor in a philosophical combat, just like the timocratic souls were the souls that were ruled by the power of victory in warfare, or the generals who ran the state. The timocracy was those who were put in power who are victorious. So this, I think, is Plato rightly sees as degenerate because it doesn't care about all the virtues. It doesn't care about all the things that are good. It just cares about one virtue, namely honors. Now, their honors are okay, and I think philosophers can demonstrate their chops, as it were, their skills as philosophers by giving good arguments and defeating bad arguments, by taking every thought captive, right? As the Apostle Paul teaches us, to cast down strongholds. This is an important task of a Christian philosopher. But if that's your only motivation for doing philosophy, you have a degenerate motivation on a Platonic view, and I think on a Christian one. Because all these things will pass away, right? Love is the one thing that remains, and love of wisdom is the primary motivation. So the timocratic soul, don't study philosophy for the honors. These all pass, right? In 100 years, no one will think of, probably in 20 years, even now, very few people think of me as a philosopher, and think of how many other philosophers have labored their whole lives to write and think and speak and teach. And after their death, no one thinks of them at all. So this is not the proper motivation. The next degenerate regime here is, or philosophy motivation, I should say, is the oligarchic. The oligarchic motivation. In the Republic, the oligarchy is the degenerate regime that's ruled by money. We've talked about that already. Hey, Some people might get rich making philosophy videos on YouTube or getting hired by a big tech AI company or something, but there's very few people that that's going to happen to. I remember reading this book. I think my one of my relatives gave it to me. I won't say which one. Years ago. I think he was kind of hopeful that maybe my philosophy would turn lucrative someday. But it was a book, something like called Future, or, I don't know, Predictions for the Future, or something like this. Some futurist guy who said in the 21st century, by the mid 21st century, philosophers and ethicists will be tracked down and paid millions of dollars for their knowledge. I still haven't got any calls like that. I mean, there are some, but money is right on Plato's divided line. If that reference doesn't make sense, you got to read the Republic. Money is abstract and concrete. It straddles the physical and the Platonic heavenly worlds. And the oligarchic philosopher who is simply trying to do philosophy to pay the bills will probably end up hating philosophy and the bills too. And it probably results in a lot of resentment. Philosophers, even just to have jobs doing philosophy, they're hard to come by. And sometimes I think even my own motivation, I have to check that, right? Doing something for purely monetary reasons, lucrative reasons, it ends up being slavish in some way. Like I'm like bound by this motivation, and of course it can be taken away. Money can be taken away very quickly. I've known philosophers that have better publications than I do, better educated, way smarter, who had great jobs, tenured, and their institutions just closed their programs, and they got booted, and it's quite sad. And I've known people who are way smarter than I am who never got jobs. They got degrees from the top PhD programs in the country and couldn't find work. So if that were my motivation, I'd be sorely disappointed. So the love of wisdom is the only thing that can't be taken away from you. Doing philosophy for monetary reasons, of course, can quite easily. The next degenerate regime down on Plato's review, the next degenerate soul, the next bad reason for doing philosophy is what Plato calls the democratic reason. In the Republic, the democratic regime is a regime that doesn't care. It doesn't care about the truth. It just cares about everything equally. It's interested in ideas whether they are true or false. It's really a form of relativism. So for the soul, the individual person, if I had a democratic soul, I would only care about what's on my mind at the moment, flitting from one thing to the next, not caring about truth, goodness, and beauty, and what's ultimately real, but just caring about the fashions of the day, the things that are like here and now, what's cool, what's hip, what's trendy, anything, and it's all equal. There's nothing right or wrong. There's nothing good or bad. There's nothing true or false. There's nothing beautiful or ugly. It's just a matter of opinion, and we should listen to all opinions the same and cash them out. And right, so this is a really bad motivation, and I think probably this is one of the least. I don't know. Maybe it's hard to say. For some people who study philosophy, I think on the very surfacey level, this is a motivation. They're just interested in cool ideas, right? But not interested in the truth. Socrates was interested in the truth, and it got him killed. This is why it's really hard to recruit people into a philosophy degree, especially if you're a Christian, right? So someone says, well, like, who's your favorite, why should I study philosophy? Who are your favorite, like, examples, people you want to follow and be like as a philosopher? And as a Christian philosopher, I'll say, like, well, Socrates and Jesus. And then most people are familiar, at least with Jesus. Not everyone's familiar with Socrates. You might think, well, what were their lives like? How did their lives end? And the response is, I've often said, Well, one of them was killed by execution by drinking a poison, hemlock. He was quite old, lived a long life, but still met an untimely demise by execution. He was hated and impoverished and ultimately martyred. And then, of course, Jesus, our Savior, was crucified. So it rose from the dead too. But to tell someone, yes, major in philosophy, and you could be like Socrates and Jesus. You will either be executed by hemlock or the cross. And this is usually a discouragement to study philosophy. But for the democratic philosopher, the philosophy who's motivated simply by trendy ideas, I think if that were my motivation, I would be sorely disappointed, because nothing ever is achieved. And it's in some ways just absent of any purpose and meaning. And now one can say, well, I can give it meaning. Sure, you can, but it's ultimately meaningless if there is no truth and goodness and beauty. And that's rather the opposite of what philosophy is supposed to be, the love of wisdom, not the love of trendy and cool ideas. Lastly, the worst reason to study philosophy follows, again, Plato's worst souls or worst regimes in the Republic, and that is the tyrannical. The tyrannical soul or the tyrannical state in Plato's Republic is one physical, in this case, physical motivation. In Plato's hierarchy of the soul, the tyrannical soul is like one part of the physical part of the whole human person, one bodily desire that dominates and rules the entire human life. It'd be like one physical addiction to food or drugs or drink or whatever it is, something carnal, that dominates and rules your life. It's like in the political realm, it's like one person in the demos, one person among the state takes power and dominates everyone else, so that the state is the subject and servant and dominated solely by the one interest of that one individual of the state. And there's plenty of examples of this currently. You can look around. And no, it's not here in the U.S. Just find your favorite dictator on the planet and you've got the idea. I don't know if you have a favorite dictator, but I'm sure you've got a paradigm case of a dictator who rules their state solely for their pleasure. And I don't know what that would look like for a motivation for philosophy. I suppose it could be something like, well, I get to have people do what I tell them. It's a power trip. And I feel like I've seen examples of this amongst some philosophers over my lifetime who, how do I put this? None of us are beyond this, I suppose, but they use their philosophy position, their prestige, their status in order to get what they want. Their soul, physical, the fulfillment of their physical bodily pleasures. And you can use your imagination to follow that out, or just look up in the news over the last, 50 years or so, philosophers who have gotten caught up in scandals on things. And you'll see that motivation. Now, I can't judge a particular philosopher's motivation, but if that's your motivation, I would not, I would highly caution you to be motivated to study philosophy because of that. So I don't know if this is helpful to think about this platonically, but if you're going to study philosophy, if you're going to take the time and effort, do it because you love it. Don't do it for any other reason. I think it would be better not to study philosophy at all than to do it for the wrong reasons. It'd be better to just do what you're good at if it's not studying philosophy, and get good at that thing, than to study philosophy and do it for reasons other than the sheer love of wisdom, right? And this, was it Whitehead or someone that said, I think it was Whitehead, Alfred North Whitehead, who said, all philosophy is a footnote to Plato. So we'll go back to the Republic here, right? The philosophers, their task in the Republic, right? And again, I take the political part of the Republic to be an allegory. Analogy is better. An analogy of the soul. So I take the political part to be translated down into the psychological. But remember, the philosophers, the purpose of them studying is to rule their own lives and ultimately the state. But if you want to go on the political route, but to rule their own soul. And then Plato has the roles for other people within the state to do their work, right? So if you're really good at fill in the blank, accounting or dentistry or auto mechanics or HVAC or whatever, do those things, do them well. Don't worry about studying philosophy too much. Now you can get good at it as like a hobby, as a side interest, and I think that's one of the beauties of philosophy. You don't have to be a professional philosopher to study philosophy. So if you want to study philosophy, by all means do it, regardless of your vocation. That is whatever you do to pay your bills and what you're good at and what you like doing. But do it for the right reasons. Right? Don't do it for reasons of fulfillment of one bodily desire. Don't do it for the reason of just pursuing trendy ideas. Don't do it. Don't do it for making money. Don't do it for receiving honors and praise from others. As Boethius says, all these things can be taken from you. Or as Jesus says, what does it profit to gain the whole world and lose your soul? And that's what studying philosophy is about. It's about the improvement of your soul. And studying philosophy should also, in my opinion, not just be the study of goodness, truth, and beauty, but be the study of the source of goodness, truth, and beauty, which is found in Christ alone. All right, thanks for watching.